webinar, we call it Apprenticeship Dialogue, where we will brainstorm with the experts to understand the apprenticeship ecosystem and look at the avenues how to make it more effective. We are doing this webinar in association with the India Apprenticeship Forum. As India gets back to work post-lockdown, organizations are adopting and adapting to the changed world of work post-COVID-19. While apprenticeships will continue to play an important role in building capabilities, it will be interesting to know about the initiatives organizations are taking to continue apprenticeships under current circumstances, the role digitization will play in implementing apprenticeship training, the support employers seek from government in implementing apprenticeship, or any other support that you're looking for, and also the role of apprenticeship in the socio-economic recovery. We have with us a panel from a diverse background with whom we'll have an insightful interaction. I've got Ritu Bhatia with me here, who is the VP HR for Genpact. Hi, Ritu, welcome to the webinar.
Thanks for inviting me, Sumit, appreciate it.
I have Mr. Sushil Tripathi, who's the head of HR for the CRM apparels and retail business. Good afternoon, Mr. Tripathi, and welcome to the...
Good afternoon, Sumit, thanks.
And also I have with me Mr. Colin Mendes, who's the head of HR for Voltas Beko. Welcome, Colin, to this event.
Good afternoon, Sumit, and thank you very much, and happy to be part of this forum.
Fantastic. So as we get started, we'd really like to know that all of you had been implementing apprenticeship before the lockdown. In fact, for many, many years, you have been doing probably, Ritu, you've just started, Genpact just started doing apprenticeship, but of course, a large volume, considering the kind of organization that you are, a very unique thing to, to the industry. Actually, not very many organizations in your space have that volume of apprentices. But having said that, we'd just like to understand from each one of you how COVID-19 has impacted the implementation of apprenticeship training in your organization. All you coming from a different background, Sushilji comes from the retail sector, Colin, you are from the manufacturing, Ritu, you are from an ITES, very different work environment. So how has apprenticeship really impacted, how the COVID-19 has impacted implementing apprenticeship in your organization? So Ritu, would love to hear from you, considering that yours is not a very, it was more the knowledge-driven work.
Yeah.
What were you doing before it, and how it how it got impacted and how is it getting continued now?
Yeah, no, that's a very good question to start this off. So just a brief background about Genpact for those who don't know us as yet. We are a professional services organization, a global organization with more than 95,000 employees, with 700 plus key marquee clients globally that we manage, work for in a very strategic manner. A lot of it to do with digital transformation, or like Sumit mentioned, very heavy, deep process knowledge related work, etc. So specifically, as far as the apprenticeship program, we're extremely proud to be associated with the Indian government to partner on this very noble cause. We started around 2018, so very new to the journey, and we've had loads and loads of learnings in the process, and we look forward to continuing to invest in this area. When we started off pre-apprenticeship program, our entry-level associates, as we like to call them, and then help them create their career trajectories in the organization. Like I started way back in 1999. We used to hire them as non-apprentices. So, the senior most leadership of the organization took a decision that we're going to actually only hire apprentices in India at that entry level, help them, train them, ensure that they're gainfully employed while on job training, and then help them assess their performance as we invest in them and see where it lands. So, COVID specifically for us, before we started off, like I was sharing with you guys, our organization's very agile and nimble in the way it transforms itself. Our journey as far as work from home, for example, is not new to us, despite our entire trajectory as a company only being about 15 plus years. So when COVID hit us, our core decision and agenda was safety and security of our employees, including apprentices, obviously. And we were very quick to take that decision that we're going to mobilize everybody to work from home. Now, for apprentices, our commitment to the government remains that the curriculum, the training curriculum that they have envisaged, we're going to ensure that it's implemented to the T. And therefore, we immediately moved everything virtual. All learning, everything was enabled well in time, and the government partnered with us. They were very trusting, and they said, go ahead, you're doing the right thing. So we actually moved very quickly in the game plan the moment lockdown happened in March to virtual ways of working, including training for the apprentices. So Sumit, I must say that it, frankly, hindsight is a big deal, but because we were already prepared for it to some extent of having having the infrastructure in place, IT being a big component of being able to mobilize our workforce very quickly, we were able to get our apprentices to move their training from classroom to virtual immediately.
Fantastic, fantastic. What about you, Mr. Tripathi? How was it for you? I mean, being in the both manufacturing, because you also manufacture the garments and also retailing of it. How was it that you were implementing it, and how COVID impacted, and how do you continue to do apprenticeships?
So Sumit, if I compare with Genpact, so you rightly said we are into product making. So we make garments, so our own factories, so which are into Daman and Silvassa. So day one, we are, that working with apprentice at factory level, but for retails and sales role, this apprenticeship scheme is new. So what we did, like we clearly identified which kind of role really require long time of training period. Initially, we cannot expect a good productivity from the role holder. So we are clear, like at factory level, we require continuity in terms of tailor, operators, skilled tailors. So usually at shop floor level, we have been keeping people in apprenticeship role, and for that we had signed an agreement with Atul Industries. So basically they are running one school there, so in Dharmpur. So from there we had been engaging local tribal people, and these people were engaged as an apprentice into the system. So that's how we had been engaging people at shop floor level. But at corporate office and various store locations. So when Government of India reintroduced or modified Apprenticeship Act, then only we got attracted towards this scheme. So initially we started with customer care associates and shop floor assistant kind of role. But realizing the physical need of garment selling. So, in India or anywhere for that per se, customer prefers to, that see garments, how quality looks like, which kind of fitting, visibility, everything they prefers after experimenting or experiencing that product. So COVID per se impacted a lot in terms of physical store opening. So on the job training per se for these apprentices got badly affected. So we realized that 3-4 months already passed, and still we are visualizing next quarter is going like this only. So we are not expecting stores are going to open up and no footfall from the customers. So retail industry and particularly garment sector is very badly affected with this pandemic. So what we did, yes, so that part we will be covering maybe later. So to summarize it, we are very badly affected with COVID in terms of apprentice implementation.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So there has been a complete disruption to your training. Okay. What about you, Colin? What has been your experience? And we'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, thanks, Amit. And unlike Ritu, who was largely prepared being in the IT sector, I think, I guess manufacturing was slightly unprepared in terms of readiness to go digital to a large extent. But I think we were quickly managed and were nimble to that. Let me start with a little bit of a backdrop to actually to tell you about a little bit of our journey, how this really happened. So way back in March, when this lockdown really got enforced, companies started shutting down, and most organizations took some immediate steps which they needed to take. Similarly, what we did, we kept routine checks on wellness with our on the status of our employees and their family members, and also their current location where they were located. And I think this was very critical because in the long run, it helped us getting them back once the unlock happened. But as time started, as the lockdown started getting extended, and we weren't prepared, we immediately started shifting gears. And I think one of the key things that actually took place is that we needed to ensure that they were adequately engaged, right? Because these were typically apprentices that were deployed at the shop floor level. So how we needed to ensure that they utilize their time in a fairly productive manner. So we started with some small, quick engagement, few engagement activities, which is like, to start with, build awareness on safety, health, hygiene, and so on and so forth. We also put a large focus on capability building, and I'm sure similarly, like what Ritu did and Mr. Tripathi also did, so focus on capability building, surrounding training, education with a blend of both soft and technical skills. Okay, and this was actually done for these guys who were at the shop floor. We introduced a virtual instruction-led training, okay, which blends basically theoretical as well as practical applications to virtual classrooms. And I think this significantly made a big difference. None of them had done this sometime back, and I think it made a big difference to them going forward. I think how did this really work? It helped give them credits based on the topics that were allotted, and the number of learning hours, both theory and practicalness. So I think that made a big difference in terms of their to get their mind focused and moved out from what they were really thinking, and they were engrossed in. So I think if I were to summarize, it helped in two ways. One is it was an alternative to the traditional format, which was not possible anymore, considering that we were manufacturing, and large part of our training was on the shop floor or was in physical format. The second was to develop skills based on what we needed, so we could do a little bit of a customization there. Yeah, the benefits typically of this model talked about, one, I think the ability to give them access to a central pool of experts that were available. Now, all these experts were in different locations, and this was through this virtual mechanism we were able to give them access. And today, with virtual, we are able to actually connect to the best of the best all over. And I think that was a huge leverage that I could see through a platform like this. The second part of it was highly interactive, and I could see that the students got very, very engaged, and they were more effective during the training. The third was, I think, it also enhanced productivity and ensured that they were much more productive when they got back. You could mention about customization. It was more flexible, and it ensured continuous learning and upgradation of these people. Now, let me talk about the unlocking process, what happened in May. So when we started unlocking, and particularly for our industry in manufacturing, when we were to bring back the workforce, there was a major challenge. And this is not only felt by me, I think the entire manufacturing setup who started talking back to the unlocking process, they had a big difficulty getting back the people. But I think for us, because of certain proactive steps that we started at the very beginning, which was to trace people, we were able to remobilize and get them very quickly back. And today, I must say that I'm happy to say that today, we are back to manpower numbers that are pre-lockdown numbers. That's number one, or higher than the pre-lockdown numbers, as well as the apprentices are back on the shop floor, completely on the job. With the training, incorporating all what they learned, which they continue to learn virtually. So I think it's been a win-win during this period to ensure that these people are engaged, we are able to keep skilling them, and we continue to skill them. So that's what I would like to summarize.
So any suggestions from you, Colin, for the organizations, we can learn from you, some recommendation that you would like to give them, or any recommendations that you would like to make to ensure how do they maintain continuity in the current situation? Like one of the stuff you said that you've been able to remobilize, you were doing these VILT trainings for your apprentices. That was during the lockdown. But as India is preparing for unlocking, or as it's almost like unlocking is happened or happening kind of a thing, what would be your recommendations to the other employers to maintain continuity in apprenticeships?
I think, Sumit, we need to take a more long-term view and a long-term thinking hat for this particular program, because I'm really bullish that we will not only come out better, but also stronger out of this crisis. And I foresee that as an organization, it's important to really seed, nurture, and build this talent that can germinate to become your future talent pipeline. And I would really put it across as, some kind of an overall strategy would be really a five-fold approach. The first, of course, would be to focus on increase and induct more apprentices into the talent pipeline. So that is number one. So rather than looking at it very short term, take a longer term view and increase your induction of apprentice into the talent pipeline. Number two is nurture this with a blend of VILT, basically, and of course on the job training. Number three is regular coaching and mentoring, which will actually build these people. Number four is, ensure that there are routine evaluations and feedbacks. And actually, I think the biggest or the icing on the cake is to create a career path into the mainstream for the best of the best. So this is what I would really consider if I were to, look at it from a longer term perspective.
Fantastic. I think that's a wonderful way to make benefit of, make most of the apprenticeship. How do you build a people supply chain? How do you enhance the productivity of the people? Ritu, what would be your recommendation, considering the fact that you said that currently about 95% of the people continue to operate out of work from home? And I don't know how the situation would be post, the lockdown happens, how much of workforce would be back in the office. What would be your recommendation for the organizations, or what would the takeaways that organization can take from some of the practices that you have adopted?
Yeah.
I mean, you mentioned that you were pretty much agile, your systems were well in place, but
Absolutely.
any recommendation that you would like to make to the other employees that they adopt?
So, while we are early in the game plan, it really resonated with what Colin said, because at the crux of it, it's really not about different industries. And obviously at the core of it, you have to adapt to your unique ecosystem, but you're dealing with human beings end of the day, right? And you have to understand, you can keep talking about business continuity. You can keep talking about, what is important for business. End of the day, you have to talk at the people level and say your security and safety is most important, right? So for us, it was giving that faith to our entire employee base. And when I say employees, in no manner am I differentiating apprentices versus contractors versus employees. Every human being who's associated across in Genpact, that faith that the company genuinely believes in my safety and security. And in this COVID situation, it came out so much more clear, because for us, even if our client at any juncture, because they are based outside of India, they might not be so very well aware of how and what are some of the infrastructural and human challenges one is going through, etc. Notwithstanding all of that, we were very clear we're not going to have our workforce come back, even if our clients would not sign off because of data privacy, etc. So I think apprentices specifically, because we moved to virtual ways of learning, it took away that angst or any anxiety or discomfort that they had that I'll have to start coming back to work as lockdown is over, and kind of put myself and my dear ones and my family at risk because of this. So that's, I think, given back quite a lot of confidence to the employees that, the company is truly invested in me. And I would urge all of us to think in terms of, virtual ways of working is frankly here to stay. And we have to start thinking, and I know it's very exaggerated for firms that cannot, you have a factory environment, etc. But jobs that can be now done, even if it's in a hybrid model, we have to start thinking about that for sure. It's no longer an alien concept. I think the second was the fact that apprentices also, personally, I believe, realized that for Genpact, learning is ingrained in our culture. So come what may, because we've enabled it virtually, you can do it at your own pace. We're still giving you a very a very comfortable model, because you get to interact with a live trainer when those batches happen, with a mix of learning certain video-based learnings at your own pace. It built the interest in the fact that, okay, this is not like a one-way street. There are people who enjoy and get motivated when, you know, there is a speaker on the other side who's imparting the training, etc. So an amalgamation of different ways in which we were imparting training helped a lot as well. And so therefore, my suggestion to anyone who wants to think of continuing the investment in upskilling, right skilling our apprentices is that do think about, you know, virtual setups. They do definitely work. We have a great pass percentage of folks in the apprenticeship level who have cleared process assessments as recent as a month back. And all of this, I'm very proud of the fact to say, was done virtually. And frankly, I feel the pride even when I look at my 13-year-old who is studying virtually. His exams are about to happen next week. And, you know, and his school wrote a note about integrity and ethics, in the fact that, listen, you guys are going to be studying virtually, learning and doing the test virtually. And integrity is something that will continue to remain as utmost important. So it is very important to keep reiterating and communicating as well. Virtual doesn't mean that there is a disconnect now and, you know, you're in your own cocoon and doing your own thing. So reimagine the whole process of communication, and how you reconnect is also going to play a very pivotal role. So those are 3-4 quick things, Sumit, that I believe I could share.
There's a lot of the human element, what you're talking about, the communication aspect, empathizing with it, providing the confidence and building that trust and faith. I think that was some of the essential things that you would like to recommend to the employers. Fantastic. So Sushilji, what would be your recommendation? Because you come from, again, you handle further diversity, which is more on the retail side as well, plus other manufacturing side as well. So what would be your recommendation for the employers? You know, one thing I would like to, before you say, Sushilji, I would just like to say one thing. In one of our events, the previous one thing which came out very, you know, very strongly was that one of the gentlemen said that, you know, we also being very strict as people are opening up. If there any gap or they're being indisciplined when it comes to health and safety, they too, you know, take them for a task. So something very unusual, but yes, I think that is the need of the hour today, because, you know, health and safety has to be the priority at the workplace. Sushilji, what would be your recommendation?
With how I see this entire apprenticeship issue, so clearly there are 3 stakeholders. One is an employer, then an employee, and government agencies. So what I have observed from practical point of view, first concern is always to look for available resources. Available resources in the sense, still in India, say in garment and textile, if I count engaged directly or indirectly workforce, so numbers would be in the range of 10 crore. But overall in India, 2.43 or max to max 2.5 lakh apprenticeship people are working. And initially with my experiences or engagement with NETAP or apprenticeship scheme propounder or proposition related firms, I always felt that it was suggested to the organization to save cost, because they have no legal obligations in the sense statutory benefits. So that was the reason most of the retailers or retail organizations adopted this practice. But from day one, I was against with this kind of practices. I always believed, like Colin said, we always kept long-term view in engaging with these kind of people. And I was particularly very selective in engaging these people. So what I did, so suppose for the case of shop assistant or customer care associate, normally in any store there are.
Hello.
I think Mr. Tripathi's network is acting up.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
In the interim, we have a question on the chat.
Okay,
I might not be the best from a retail sector to respond.
We'll take the questions at the end of it.
Yeah,
Okay,
maybe.
sure.
Answer. I mean, a chance to you know, raise their queries, and which will get addressed for sure. Moving on, I think let's also look at. We'll wait for Mr. We'll see as Mr. Tripathi will join us. But let's see that. What was your opinion on the role that apprenticeship can play in the recovery of the economy? Would really like to hear your views on that. I mean, consider the fact that skilled people are the mark of an evolved economy. There are many theories which are being written down, which are read on the how is recession, apprenticeship during recession, where they say that, investment in apprenticeship should continue because the things are going to get better. But it's just that apprenticeship helps you to be prepared for that movement, for the faster recovery. Just want to understand your thoughts and opinion on the the role that apprenticeship can play on road to recovery.
Sorry, Sumit, is that for me?
For both of you, I think we'd really like to hear from both of you.
Okay.
So,
yeah. Okay, so I'll just give you a quick point of view on this, and I think let me start with firstly, I like the word that you use, road to recovery, because I truly believe India has a stronger chance of pulling this off with far lesser collateral damage, at least as of now. And several factors really come in India's favor. Primarily I see 4 shifts. One is a shift in supply chain, shift in consumer psychology, shift to localize, and of course the biggest, which is a shift in manufacturing. And the reason why I'm talking about this today is because today there are large foreign manufacturers who want to relocate their production. Yeah. And I think this is very critical. There have been inquiries from Japan, United States, South Korea, and so on and so forth. And the Indian government has been luring businesses with seamless land acquisition policies that really promote manufacturing. So there has been a positive impact on infrastructure and manufacturing facilities. And so therefore, what does it mean to all of us? It means a boost in employment, and it means a huge potential to basically attract a talent pool like the apprentice into the system. So I think I foresee basically a huge potential, not only and an opportunity for organizations to engage apprentices into this growing sector, the manufacturing sector, provide them the right opportunity and the right experience that will actually help them in the longer run. So that's what a quick response. And I think we have Mr. Tripathi back as well.
So,
Yes.
Mr. Tripathi, we were just talking about it.
Yes.
What role can apprenticeship play in road to recovery?
So, like these apprentices are very cost effective in the sense, like we have to pay just depending on that company to company and industry to industry. So basically, it offers a big opportunity in terms of cost. Also, they are at your perusal. They are raw in terms of learning. They are very fresh. So whatever you want to imbibe in the sense values, culture, kind of training, kind of product skilling, or anything, whatever you want to write there. So these people are or can be created as per your wishes. So in the long run, they are going to be your sustainable talent. They can be groomed if properly taken to the career path. They can support in a big way to the organization. But the biggest challenge which I feel, stipend per se is really not a big in the sense if you consider Mumbai. So most of these apprentices are from migrant workforce, or they are migrated from different places, and getting survived on that meager amount is really very difficult. And for organization also, so I will tell you one case study. So we were working with local Daman authority. So they forced us to work with apprentice on government guidelines. So normally in garment line, 3 kind of skill operators are there. One is fixed rate worker, then semi-skilled and skilled. So maximum earning is made by skilled workmen. So normally curriculum or the pedagogy which is defined by government for these apprentices, it actually doesn't serve the purpose of to make these unskilled or trainee to get converted into skill operators. So normally what happens, so once
I think there's again some problem with him.
Yeah, I think there's an internet issue.
Yeah. But just to add to what Mr. Tripathi was saying, that the stipends may not be sufficient, I would kind of tend to disagree here or have a different opinion, because these stipends have really improved over a period of time. Today they are equated with their education qualification, and even somebody who could be as low, kind of just about 10th standard pass still gets to earn about 5,000 rupees under the Apprenticeship Act. But my experience says that the apprenticeships are, the stipends are largely being governed by the market conditions.
Yes, yes, yes.
I think if you really want to attract some good people with some good potential, and also, to ensure that these people remain engaged with the apprenticeship and they complete it, I think the stipends will definitely play an important role. And hence, employers do tend to pay decently to engage with them for a longer time period.
I totally agree because, we hire mainly graduates, and I feel they get a very competitive package. In no manner is it assessed any differently. I do want to add a point or two, if you don't mind, to the fact Colin was talking about the whole supply chain challenges, and I think it's only going to keep getting bigger and bigger. I mean, people speak about war for talent. I think it's actually been there for a while, and it's only getting bigger. Companies that are not imbibing the virtual environment or the remote work will only miss out on the opportunity to, in fact, really truly get the best of the talent to work for them. Because now, frankly, organizations which are fully adapted or are adapting and getting comfortable with the concept of remote work are actually going to be able to hire a person sitting anywhere and not have to worry about mobility, right? Now, specifically, considering that we still might be largely at the journey of accepting remote working models or virtual working models or hybrid working models, and therefore the war for talent being as real as it can be, unfortunately, I don't think our education system has evolved. It's definitely improving. There are very open dialogues that keep happening. Going back to my own personal example of when I look at the way my son, is getting educated, his course material is obviously far more real and relatable to today's environment than when I was in 8th standard, for example. But it's still not allowing students to really think or gaining that, bringing that potential out in them so that the moment they graduated or their 10th or 12th pass, they're actually far more enabled to be part of a corporate or, an industry. And therefore, I think apprenticeship opportunity really does help. It is a win-win, right? Because you're getting opportunity to invest and groom talent and ensure that you're able to provide that platform to them while they continue to be gainfully earning and make a life for them, and you're absolutely helping the economy of the country as well. And in the process, there is a talent pool that you're able to now attract that you perhaps were not assessing as seriously as before. So frankly, for me, I personally look at it as a big win-win. And
so you are trying to say that, relating whatever the gaps which are there in the education system, probably apprenticeship kind of helps them overcome those challenges and become job ready, which is...
To some extent, yes, because we are also a very digitally savvy organization. So we do imbibe those trainings over and above the curriculum for our apprentices to enable them further. So yeah, I definitely do believe it's a win-win.
And Sumit, if I were to just add to what you said earlier, I think on the stipend part of it, I think it's very important. If you want to respect that cadre of employees, then you need to pay them market.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Otherwise, you will end up hugely discounting that entire cadre. And actually, finally, you will end up just doing the government obligation, which is actually not the intent of this entire scheme. So I think it's important for organizations to understand. And I think today across all organizations, they're pretty much in line with the market standard, which is, I think, the way to be. Yeah. So I think that's the way to go forward. I just wanted to add to the point that you mentioned earlier.
Fantastic. So Shilji, would you want to continue with your comment on the road to the role that apprenticeship can play for the economy to grow? I think
net is not yet stabilized.
Yes. Both of you did mention about the role of digitization, like how you've kind of engaged more virtually, be it learning and like Ritu, you said that, you got approval to continue the training through digitally, and same goes with you, Colin, that you mentioned about the VILT technology. How do you think that going forward, and consider the fact that now this is going to be the new normal, how digitization is going to impact the apprenticeship training? Do you think that virtual learning will continue, or what is your thought on that, on the whole aspect of digitization?
I guess from the time we started, I've been saying virtual digitization.
Yeah.
I guess the answer
So that's the way forward, you see that.
Exactly. So listen, it's not like we don't have in small cohorts people returning to office, but we are being consciously extremely deliberate about that. So we largely are still 90% still virtual, and we do plan to assess the situation as it unfolds. Obviously, it's every day, it's a new day, literally, right? But our endeavor would be to continuously assess the situation and take a call. And if in the process, Genpact, I don't know how many of you are well read about our organization and our culture. We love being pioneers in everything we do, like, be the first, champion the cause, and all of the good associated stuff. We're very passionate about stuff. In this one, we're not going to be leading the pack. We're not going to be pioneers in return to office in our industry, and we are very happy taking that decision. So therefore, going back to the fact, also you have to understand that COVID can't suddenly, because it did hit our country very suddenly. There was a lockdown, right? That just happened in the month of March. I don't know how many of us were really prepared with what came along with it. For a company our size, to be able to go virtual in a jiffy is not possible till the time you don't have culture, you don't have ecosystem, you don't have buy-in, you don't have ways of working, you don't have security, info security measures, and people's mindset that's already been built around it, right? So our journey, frankly, on that happened some time back. About 2.5 years ago, we took a call that we are a very learning enabled organization, and with our kind of workforce, which is so dispersed, so diverse, and we want to continuously invest in making them digitally savvy, there's no way we can just keep doing classroom trainings. We'll always be behind the curve. So we use the collective power of our own employee base, came together and created a learning platform called Genome. Okay. By the way, Genome is out in the market as well, and free of cost, we have extended it to the market to learn from our collective wisdom. And that's in a short period of 2 years. So that entire, and I'm happy to get into Genome, but I know that's not what this topic is about, but really our ability to create a virtual learning environment well before COVID actually hit really gave us confidence, that made us sit up and take notice and say, wait a minute, we have Genome happening, and we are still calling apprentices into classroom and doing a classroom setup that has to be audited. That is it by this size, by this size? Does it have a monitor? Are there 20 seats with the right distance? I mean, which world are we living? It took us a long time to even associate ourselves with that thinking, because we just are not built like that. For us, it was like, we just took a decision. We are going virtual. Why would apprenticeship training continue to be in class when rest of the organization is going to enjoy learning at their own pace online? And thankfully for us, the government understanding our business case and allowing us is only given us greater confidence that that is the way of being, right? A physical connect to learn from each other. Those days, perhaps, for all you know, are fairly passé.
I think one very interesting point you made, Ritu, here was that you need to have the culture and the mindset to align yourself for digitization, and something which you had been doing. So obviously for you to transition during these periods.
Absolutely, and a complete top-down approach, right, Sumit? So it's not just being done in certain businesses, certain departments, certain people, certain regions. It was our CEO clearly talking about Genome, even in our earnings call, in our town halls, promoting the culture and, you know, literally naming people who had spent hours on genome. How did they do it during on job? You know, even if you're spending 5 hours, 5 minutes, small bite-sized learning every day, he would encourage by calling out those names. So it was very clear to everybody that this is how we will learn from here. You're not going to be sponsored to go to a forum or go to this training or that training.
This is it for you. Nice to hear that. What about you, Colin? You know, we've been hearing about industrial 4.0. Now, of course, with so much of digitization and noise being made about, we see that it's going to you know, increase the pace of adoption of digitization, automation at the manufacturing level as well. How do you think that that's going to impact apprenticeship? Now, apprenticeship could not just be meaning from the fact that how does it get implemented, but are you also would intend people to get trained in those skills, which would be essential for the future automation and for the future operations here?
Yeah, so I think two parts of it from a digital perspective. There are two aspects. One is, of course, digitization and technology is something that, you know, this generation is really born with. And today they're far more passionate about using technology, really virtually for everything that they want to do, whether it's to express themselves, crave for instant recognition, entertain others, and so on and so forth. And I think we must leverage on this addiction really to build, skills. Using examples of digital tools to convert their theory into application. So that's one part of it. But I must mention that, you know, you can have lighter versions, like Ritu mentioned, bite-sized learning, but lighter versions on the mobile, so which will be in the form of micro-learning, gamifications, I think, which can be more flexible and more available on the go. This could be either one-on-one or group learning that will actually bring about collective brilliance and much wider adoption at a larger scale. But I must bring into place the certain challenges that are there, because it's easily said when you're talking about doing this in a metro or a larger city. But when you go down to small villages and towns, there are issues related to infrastructure. There's an issue related to affordability. I think we need to be aware at the broader spectrum of the country and where people are mostly available. We need to try and improve that infrastructure. So if we are able to do that, I think that will play a large role in taking us very quickly in the digital journey for apprenticeship training. Because all said and done, you know, we can talk all of these good things and nice to do things work better in a place like in larger metros where internets are better. But there's a question of, you know, lesser bandwidth available in small villages, small towns. There's a question of also people who come from smaller backgrounds on affordability. So, you know, how can we really fix that issue? I think we need to think about it from a larger spectrum of things.
I totally agree. I think that,
infrastructure, something what you're saying needs to be upgraded.
Yes.
Their adoption and of course the feasibility aspect of it, or seamlessness aspect of it.
Absolutely.
What would be your role? I mean, what would be your idea of digitization for doing apprenticeships? You know, to utilize digitization, the fact that you are in retail, and now we do get to hear every now and then that how the organizations, apart from using the e-com platforms, they're coming up with their own e-com channels as for their sales, and how they're engaging with the customers socially, digitally, to strike a sale or make a decision and kind of influence the decision largely. How do you think that digitization will influence your sector aspect of it? Have I lost him again?
We always lose Mr. Tripathi when it's his turn, just saying.
Oh my God. Okay, let's see.
I guess, Colin, really, that was a very practical advice, right? Digitization, I mean, really enable it. And
yes, at where it matters the most. Absolutely. Because it sounds very nice for all of us, you know, what we talk about, you know, doing all these things, but actually where it really impacts and where it really pinches, I think we still have got a long way to go.
No, I hear you, absolutely. And notwithstanding all of the hurdles that still exist, I still feel that the journey that one can undertake just by committing to it, right?
Yes.
All of us, it really can move things forward.
Yes.
And Sumit, just to reiterate the point, yes, we are early in the game, but for us to have enabled ourselves to bring in policies and structures like saying all our entry level positions, minus our, the technology hiring, is going to be apprentices, is a big decision. And that could not have been taken had the management not been bought into the whole process, right? So therefore, I think you tend to want to start solving for problems once there is commitment, because once that mindset change happens, then you start looking for solutions. I, for one, have actually looked forward to working with TeamLease and with the government to find solutions to many things. I mean, at times we've had to go a number of times with the same problem because it is a problem in our mind. But, for the government, it's like, okay, let's just do a round table, let's just come together. And I think we need more of that to really,
Engagement.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, sure. So I think with that, we'll just open the forum for the questions. I see there are plenty of them which are there for us. So let's go one by one. Vinod, would you want to take up the questions?
Thank you, Sumit. So good afternoon, everyone. I think it was an interesting session and a lot of questions flying in. So just start out with the first question. I'll just read it out and then Sumit, you can pick it up with the respective speakers. So this question is from Nancy. The question is, how to engage apprenticeships in retail sector who are undergoing on-the-job training?
So maybe I will take it up in case Mr. Sushil hasn't joined us back. Just a minute. Okay, sure. So I would just use my experience to share what kind of roles that can be taken up in retail. See, retail, we have to look at both from the front end, which is more customer facing, and also from the back end, which is more to do with the supply chain. There are a lot of roles which are there today where apprenticeship can be, can be done. Like when you look at from the front end side, right from being with the customer facing, which is more customer care, customer sales, sales promoters. There could be even the billing, the cashiers. There are a lot of roles today which supports apprenticeship. Even if you were to look at from the back end side, right from the supply chain management, which could include your transportation, logistics, your packaging, labeling, merchandise, your warehousing management. There are a lot of roles today where apprenticeships are possible and are being done. So come up with the role, and of course there is a possibility of doing apprenticeships there. I hope I've been able to answer your question. Vinod, will you take the another one? I see there's one which is from Surajit. Which was for Ritu on the roles that are being you mean which are being.
Yeah, so there's a question Ritu, on the roles. Yeah,
Sure.
the apprentices roles at Genpact.
Just to
Kind
let you
of
know,
roles we hire for
yes.
in Genpact? Yeah, sure.
Yeah, and just to let you know, Surajit is ex-head of apprenticeships for Government of India NSDC.
Well, thank you so much. I'm honored to get a question from you. So we hire across spectrum. It could be for customer service kind of work. It could be for collections kind of work where your voice, your accent, your ability to speak fluent English, your basic common sense to be able to solve for problems, etc., related to specific, it could be the credit card issue, etc., and how you solve for that. It could be in the space of AP, AR, accounts payable, accounts receivable, so more on the F&A space. So basically, just to give a quick, very, very dirty synopsis, Genpact is a digital or, a very digital savvy partner, strategic partner for a lot of organizations. But the crux of it, how our journey began was, the whole outsourcing, BPO, those are the kind of nomenclatures that this industry was known for. So if you just visualize it, you have a process, you go ahead and literally shift and lift and shift and send it to a company like Genpact to go ahead and do the work for you. at a certain price point and etc. So obviously we've evolved since then to in multifold ways to become a strategic partner today in the market for, like I said in the beginning, marquee clients globally. And therefore the nature of work has also evolved from very basic to complex finance and accounting to doing very, very, high-end collections work, customer service work. And that's the kind of journey in which we bring in our apprentices, provide them with the curriculum training, on-job training, and prepare them for their career trajectory.
Fantastic.
Thank you, Ritu. So we have a question from Surajit Roy. So his question is, can digitization replace work-based learning? And by which he means that he's actually talking about the on-job roles, and whether is this something that can be sustained in the long run? What are your views?
Sorry, could you repeat that?
We lost you in between, sorry.
I'm sorry, am I audible? Yeah. So,
Yes.
Yeah.
So the question is, can digitization replace work-based learning? So virtual learning may be some compulsion today, but does it really work in the long run? And by which he means that specifically which are not digital roles, but on-the-job roles as such.
Yeah, so I can take, yeah. So if you wish, I can take this question.
Please do, Colin.
Yeah, so certainly it can't replace, and I personally believe, particularly for manufacturing, and I'll say for manufacturing industry, because there has to be a blend of both. And today, the apprentices that we have deployed in the manufacturing are typically at the shop floor on the production line. So they're typically operators. This is a very, very highly digitized factory with robotics and so on and so forth. So the role is typically an operator kind of a role that is there at the shop floor level. So I think it's very important to blend a combination of that would be required. Basically, your micro learning or gamification, also blend that along with the regular VILT kind of learning. I think a combination of that works. At least I can say for sure for the manufacturing industry, a combination of that will actually enable them to understand the theoretical concept and convert it into how it appears at the shop floor level. Besides that, a lot of theoretical or practical orientation does happen at the shop floor. So in a manufacturing setup, I think a combination of both would work. But so that's what my point of view is.
And Sumit, I would like to add here. So for commenting, yes, this digital technology.
I think it's again. He's having some problem with the internet. That's what he just messaged. Yeah. So there was one very interesting question, possibly would have been aimed at him only. Apprentices during this pandemic in retail sector. Since he's not there, I will again take this up on his behalf. So what we have seen is that the way to utilize this time is to engage, upskill these people, ensure how we can prepare them so that once the things become better and things open up, how they can ensure their productivity at the workplace. I think this is the time to, as you know, many of you have mentioned, to take a long view. This is the time for us to actually invest in learning and development, to prepare them, to upgrade their skills so that they are able to cater in times to come. That's what I would say. That again, there is no limit to any roles, but I think rather than looking at more of the practical skills, because you would need to physically be doing them, I think we could possibly engage them more on the virtual learning platform. But yes, as things open up, as the workplace open up, that whatever theoretical learning that we've had can be put into implementation and can be practiced, rehearsed, and gain proficiency there. Any more questions that we have, Vinod?
Yeah, so we have another question. So the question is, how apprenticeship can be implemented in micro and small manufacturing industries? You want me to repeat that again?
Want to take that?
In manufacturing industries.
Yeah, how apprenticeship can be implemented specifically in micro and small manufacturing industries.
I think there is a huge scope, particularly as I mentioned earlier, with the manufacturing sector poised to take a huge growth in the next few years with the government, investing a lot in infrastructure. I think there's a huge potential, and I would say this would happen, but in manufacturing typically at top floor level, where most of the operators could be actually taken as apprentice. They could be properly trained accordingly. We could also take in apprentice at different levels, at graduate levels as well, where they could be given jobs related to planning. So an understanding of how the entire production is being planned and so on and so forth. So there are various levels within the manufacturing area, at the shop floor, at production, at quality control, where we can, at R&D, where we can consider inducting them and giving them so that they are able to get a better understanding of the entire process. So there are numerous areas that can be taken.
Thank you. So there's another question. I think this is interesting. So the question is, the German model of apprenticeship is considered to be the most successful model. What would be your recommendations to the government to make the program more robust and successful in India?
Okay, I love this question. If I can, in terms of recommendations, and I think, I've been to Siemens in Berlin to actually see the apprentice training, and I think they're far, far more progressive in where they are. But I think some of the very quick points, if I were to say, what the government could really do to facilitate and make this program far more effective. Number one is I think today the government does give us a subsidy which comes from the central government. Additionally, if the state government can consider a subsidy, particularly today, considering that most organizations are under severe cost pressures, a subsidy from the state government will really help. And they could be predetermined terms around it so that it is tight locked. The second is, as I mentioned earlier, infrastructure issues being very key. There could be lucrative finance schemes that actually can be considered, particularly like interest-free loans for people for apprentices who want to buy PCs or laptops or mobile devices. The third, I think, is stronger penetration of internet bandwidth, particularly at remote villages, et cetera, et cetera. And I think the fourth, which I think is very important, which is, can we have a repository or a skill inventory that is available with the government or in a central source of experienced and trained students? I think that will help the industry really leverage on people or on skill that is actually available in the country. So I think if we are able to, at least if the government is actually able to try and I think Sumit, you guys closely work with the government on this. If you're able to take up some of these, one is of course from a cost perspective, which is more the subsidy point of it. One is in terms of financing and internet, and the third is really building a skill inventory of different skills, both experienced and trained students.
If I could kindly add to this, is the fact, Sumit, that when you have, Sumit and Vinod, given he's asked the question, is the fact that when you have, if you look at corporate culture, right, there is a certain very visible speed in decision making. You kind of give independence around, a certain kind of a SWAT team, if I may. You kind of build that out, and more so in today's time and age with the kind of human crisis and the level of which it is extended, so that the decision making is a far more democratic process, right? I mean, you kind of given the authority to a certain group of people, go ahead, implement, learn from it, and then revise and reimagine and transform. I think if we can assess a process whereby government gives broad guidelines, more of hygiene level, this is how we want the end objective to look like, and obviously we are free to come and do audits as and when we please, to the extent we'll interview the apprentices as and when we please, or whatever have you. It will just fast pace the whole process. A lot of organizations like ours, and I think anyone who wants to invest in the apprenticeship program, get into it with a pure intent, right? But a lot of times I have personally had to juggle a lot around with who's the right contact person, interpretation of a clause, a very structured approach. And obviously it must be for the right reason. But I think getting, being open to evolving with times and allowing corporates to have a little more authority in the way they design and move forward will only help the government meet its cause much faster.
So, Ritu, what I understand you're saying is to have a more simplified apprenticeship system and with more empowerment to the employers is what you.
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
Yeah. So definitely, I think I would like to say that since we've been also working with government for a pretty long time on the apprenticeship system, definitely there have been huge amount of reforms which have happened over the last 6 years. I think the last one was in 2019, September, where there were a few more reforms that have happened. Intent from the government has always been there, to make it more simplified, make it more for the employers. Yes, there are certain challenges in the execution part of it, which they realize it. Definitely, the message comes very loud and clear to them that they need to make it more simplified so that there is we can increase more engagement.
Absolutely.
Has about 2.5 lakh of apprentices. If I go by the statistics which have been released by the government very recently, I was reading the interview of the Minister of Skill. It roughly comes out to be less than 10 apprentices per organization.
Yeah.
Less than 10, which is 9.7 was the typical one, but less than 10 what it comes out to be, which is way low than what it expected. The large organization, yes, they continue to do it, but the organization, the mid and small size, I think they need to come forward and take apprenticeships more aggressively.
Absolutely. And therefore maybe having a review, a body that kind of meets more often, right? Which has like this, amalgamation of something like this in a larger forum where there is a regular best practice, thinking, coming together, collaboration. I think it'll only help the common cause that everybody has in mind.
Mr. Tripathi, any parting notes from you? Any parting comments from your side? I think we just kind of reached the end of the time. So, Mr. Tripathi, we'd love to hear from you.
Yes. So, Sumit, what I feel, first, sorry to all the participants. So, I don't know what happened to my neck.
I think again.
Luck is not on its side today.
Not on his side today, sure. I think there were questions for him on the retail sector, which obviously I took on his behalf, but I think he would have been a better person to respond since he's the one who's doing it.
Sir, I have a question.
Yeah, sorry, who's that?
Sir, this is Rupesh Kotak.
Yes, Mr. Kotak.
And I am working with Johnson Control Hitachi, based at Ahmedabad, Kari.
Okay.
Sir, during the peak season, we are hiring at around 1,800 to 2,000 people. Okay. And this is for 7 to 8 months. And during the winter and rainy season, we reduce our manpower. So in that case, once we hire to apprentice, so we can, as per the government norms, we need to continue to all these people now. So how this will help us?
Sir, I think depending on the job role, there are certain time periods which have been described or prescribed under the Act, and even under the optional trade, there are certain job roles which have you can come up with a time frame of a particular job role or with that particular qualification pack. You can definitely do your apprenticeships for the kind, which is required for that particular job role. And if let's say today there's no job role, today government is pretty much open to consider the newer ones. And accordingly, as per the National Skill Qualification Framework, they will approve of them and you can continue doing your apprenticeships.
Okay, thank you, sir. Sir, one more question, sir.
Please tell me.
Sir, as we all are aware that we can hire maximum 10% of our total strength.
15%.
15%.
Now it increased,
15.
Okay,
15.
So my requirement is more than this. So can I go through names?
So you can even go back, you can choose any of the regulations which are available today to go by the apprenticeship. And even if you were to look at extension of the quota, maybe you can put an application to it. The government can consider that as well. But you could possibly even look at NEEM also.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. Thank you.
So Sumit will conclude.
Please,
what you asked me, how I would like to conclude with. So what I feel, all the concerned stakeholders, they have to be pure in their motives. Like I recollect my first interaction for this scheme was someone was advising in the line of saving cost by not paying any statutory norms, compliances, and then at any point of time, apprentices can be laid out from the system. So that is the irony of India. So any scheme, whichever government comes out, people start misusing it. And that is the reason, even after so many of years, we are just 2.43 lakh of apprentice. And second most important part, like for garment kind of industry, still government has not understood the complexities of the nature of role. Like we can talk about digital, virtual, but garmenting still is learned by manual practices. So a workman or an operator becomes a skill operator after working for 3-4 years. Then he start earning reasonable money to take care of his family and livelihood. But the pedagogy or the time frame which government expects 60 hours or 90 hours or maybe 75 hours, whatever is there, it is impractical. Within that framework, anyone cannot be expected to, that even make a single quality garment. So that is the biggest challenge. And stipend support per se 1,500 rupees, it is actually doesn't help at all. So we have to be pragmatic. So in recommending to the government, we have to take care of our recommendations and nature of industry, challenges of the industry, because see, paying 16,000 as a stipend, store is not earning. We can get an engineer at the cost of 12,000, 15,000. So that is the availability of talent in the India. So why we will look for apprentice if we are able to get engineers by getting their contract or maybe agreement mutually signed and consented by. So that these are few challenges in this apprenticeship scheme which need to be taken care of if we are really concerned about long-term impact and the positive impact of this scheme for the country. Otherwise, we cannot compare with Germany, Japan, Taiwan, Cambodia. So they have roped this system into their culture. So that's my say.
Sure, sir. I think very well said. Definitely, there has to be a pure intent.
Yes.
When you're doing apprenticeship, it's more of a cause. How to build up, your people's supply chain. How do you enhance the employability of the youth? There are more long-term benefits than taking a shoddy approach to apprenticeship.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Kushal Bharat then only will be obtained. Yes. Thank you, Sumit.
Okay.
So
thank you so much,
once
everybody.
again,
Sure, Mr.
Colin,
lost you many
Ritu,
times
everyone,
in between.
thanks. And sorry again. Once again, sorry. So that is new normal probably. I am getting used to. So,
yeah, the infrastructure problem, what Colin was talking about.
Yes.
Thanks, Sumit, for having us.
Yeah, thanks, Ritu. Thanks, Colin. Thank you, everybody. And thanks all the participants. All your queries will be responded to you, the questions which we could not take during the session.
Yes, even I am open. Any question can be shared to me. So
I will share it with you. There were a couple of questions for the retail sector. So I'll share it with you.
We'll do that.
Thanks, guys. Stay safe.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you.
Thanks, Ritu. Thanks, Mr. Tripathi.
Thank you, Colin. We'll catch you soon in Mumbai.
Sure.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.